From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up today on AgDay,
it is the best gift in the world.
How people across the country are getting their medical debt taken off the books for good. A story of survival, even in tough times, in this month's Farming on the Horizon.
A lot of things don't last 100 years, but our farm has.
And the impact the partial government shutdown could soon have on the ag community.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. It's day 6 of the partial government shutdown. The majority of USDA isn't disrupted yet, but if the standoff between the White House and Congress persists, it could impact the timing of the tariff aid relief from USDA. Now, the partial government shutdown started Friday at midnight. The biggest hurdle is President Trump's hardline stance on funding for a wall, something Democrats say won't happen.
I've made my position very clear. Any measure that funds the government must include border security. Has to. Not for political purposes, but for our country, for the safety of our community.
Even entering into day 6, neither President Trump or lawmakers are showing any indication of softening the stance on the border wall. But what impact is the standoff having on agriculture? Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer joins us now. Jim, just last week, USDA announcing it will release a second round of market facilitation payments. However, that news came before the shutdown took effect. So what impact could this have on farmers?
If the partial government shutdown goes into next week, that would negatively impact the issuance of the market facilitation program payments. Those are the tariff aid relief payments that are top heavy for the soybean producers. And if that's the case, I can easily predict for you that they'll have to extend the deadline for the application for those payments, which is now January the 15th. So that would be one consequence of any stoppage of those payments.
All right, Jim, besides a potential delay in the MFP payments, what other impact is the shutdown having on agriculture? I mean, what's going on business as usual within USDA, and then what's coming to a halt?
Well, actually, the first few days of the government shutdown, you are not going to see much impact on USDA because about a little over 60% of the department has residual funds that will keep them working. And that's why after the 5 days, i.e. into next week, then it starts to bite. And some of those impacts, if the partial government shutdown continues, would be USDA would not issue some major reports such as any daily export sales. Export inspections would still go out because there's an electronic issuance of that. But all those government reports that are tentatively scheduled would not be put out. So it will have an impact on agricultural data. Now, spot markets, the contract markets for mandatory price reporting for the meats will continue to go on, and that was as a result of prior legislation that signaled that that information would continue.
All right, thanks, Jim. Well, the impact of the U.S. trade war with China is still being measured. If you look at China's November customs data, imports from the U.S. were down sharply from a year ago. China's imports of ag products fell to $353 million. That total was $2.48 billion less than November of last year. Brazil was the leading supplier of China's ag imports, supplying 18% of the $10.6 billion total. And China's customs data showed there were 0 imports of U.S. soybeans in November. Normally, that's the peak season for imports of U.S. beans.
Count on your Pioneer team to bring local knowledge and insights. Year after year, Pioneer is committed to the success of every acre on your farm. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Well, farming on Wyoming's soil has its challenges with weather and conserving water, and one young producer is making sure his farm stays operational even through tough times. Betsy Gibbon has this month's story of Farming on the Horizon.
With machinery packed away, Lee Peterson is ready for a new year. He's the next generation on his family's farm in Elbin, Wyoming. with land in southern Nebraska, farming alongside his dad, Mike. It's a centennial farm, now in the hands of Lee.
A lot of things don't last 100 years, but our farm has.
As he continues a history of progressive improvements, Lee's attitude came from his dad, who at one point completely changed the farm to no-till.
My dad said it'll never work. He thought you had to plow, you know, and have brown dirt and stuff.
The Petersons' practices and land management strategies are showing, both state yield contest winners. Mike awarded first place with his dryland no-till strip-till corn yield in NCGA's contest in 2016. Lee won in 2017, and Mike won again in 2018. Lee knows inputs and trades help, including variable rate, seeding, and fertilizer. But for them, it's all about conserving moisture in an area with limited rainfall and soaring elevations. No-till is about moisture management, while he conserves water in other ways too.
Efficiency is the main key. Water probes on our irrigated so we don't overwater, and then pump the aquifer dry so we can continue to have irrigated ground.
Lee decided to grow soybeans and garbanzo beans for the first time this year. Typically a wheat, corn, and specialty bean grower, he has already witnessed the benefits to his corn and wheat yields by adding a rotational niche crop.
We thought we'd give it a shot.
While harvest was a success, Lee is hearing the harsh realities that come with farming.
You know, it's been pretty tough the last
Luckily, rain brought a bountiful harvest.
And we had tremendous wheat, and price went up, and we contracted our wheat and sold it, and the corn was really good, and our garbanzos paid good. So this year it looks like we'll be able to pay the bank off for the first time in 4 or 5 years, you know, and that's pretty bad.
Despite these difficult times, Lee is staying innovative, looking for ways to find stability, improve cash flow, flipping into the future, one that's sustainable for another 100 years. Reporting in Elbin, Wyoming, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Time now for crop comments. Mike, on our trip home from Missouri Christmas Day, we spotted this in the field. 2 combines still tirelessly working to get the crop out of the field, a rare sight on Christmas Day.
Thanks, Tyne. Well, those farmers aren't alone. Farmers in the southeast were also harvesting Christmas Day, and harvest this late in the year is a first for some. Dusty says they've never had to harvest on Christmas Day in his 36 years. Here's another one in South Carolina on Christmas Day. Singletary Farm says they're almost finished with soybeans, but it's been the wettest harvest season in South Carolina in quite some time. And in Texas, Chris Lopez says they just finished getting that last of their wheat in on Christmas Eve. Finally, a long harvest for many this year. Now taking a look at the wind speed forecast, this is going to be a windy storm in the middle of the country. Maybe even some severe weather in the southern Mississippi Valley, so keep that in mind. Still windy later today from the Great Lakes to the plains back into parts of California and Nevada. And also as we head into the day tomorrow, still windy in many parts of the northern plains, moving to the east coast as well. And that continues to spread eastward as we head through the afternoon. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Coming up, we're looking ahead to 2019 and what producers should be watching when it comes to the markets. And later, many people are starting 2019 with a whole lot less debt. How their medical bills are suddenly getting paid ahead in the country.
Machinery Pete's having a huge year-end unreserved online dealer auction in conjunction with Big Iron. Items are open for bidding now and close December 27th. Go to machinerypete.com/auction. Unreserved, lien-free, no buyer fees. Start bidding now.
Well, not a good return to the market for corn and soybeans following the Christmas break on Tuesday. Here's more now from the CME.
Today, soybeans really dropped. The market actually hung on for a while, but it slipped as news of rainfall in South America came in. Just letting you know that the improvement for row crops in Brazil and Argentina really adds to the expectation that there's going to be a big crop coming in at the end of the season. and that also was going to weigh heavy on the corn as well, as we see both markets were much lower.
What lessons can we take away from the trade war with China as we head into the new year? Clinton Griffiths speaks with Advanced Trading's Tommy Grisafi about 2 things you should be watching in the markets.
Tommy Grisafi, Advanced Trading, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Tommy, as we look at what's been going on, some of the sales that we've made to China, if they've done anything that's strengthened some bases kind of up in the northern plains, and it needed to strengthen, right?
Yeah, basis is like when someone drops a rock or a pebble in water. It spreads out. And so if we're selling more grain out of the P&W, you're seeing a pullback up to the P&W. Whereas people were, hey, what are we going to do with this grain up here? They were starting to send it to St. Louis. Very expensive to do that. So we weren't going to throw the grain away. But at what point does the elevator buy that grain from a farmer? So something that's interesting that happened where elevator managers are like, well, I'm in the elevator business, I got to buy grain. But they needed a head start. I mean, they just couldn't go buy grain while we're in a trade war. And so, they went wide during the harvest. And it's just so important for the farmer to have a plan. Have a plan on average bushels, above average bushels. If you go below average bushels, you won't be worried about where you're going to sell them. You're going to be calling your crop insurance agent. So we've seen basis improvement. We're also seeing future sell-off. So for a guy who just looks at a web page and checks his local price of grain, which is really all that matters to him within 50 miles of his farm, really that price hasn't moved too much. So you say, hey, we sold a bunch of grain to China. Thank God, because if we didn't, things could be a lot worse off. So there's 2 parts of watching the market. Don't make it overly complicated. It's really important to understand your local cash market. There's better times a year to sell grain, and I think the farmer learned that the hard way this year.
Yeah, as far as like making up or setting those bases, do you like to lock in that basis thing, or do you want to leave that open? What's your thoughts?
It depends where the grower is, right? So I love the grower to utilize selling HTAs or selling futures at the elevator. They're using the elevator's money. They're not tapping in their line of credit. But at some point, right, you need to set that basis. I'd like to make sure the bushels are a little there. Maybe you set a little in the spring, you set a little in the summer. Once those bushels are there, you're clear to go. But as you know, you're a farm kid, you drove around the combine. You don't know if those beans are there until you're in that combine. So, sometimes we move to a different, we use some puts. So we need to set the basis. They're 2 different trades, but it's an art. These guys who trade basis, they're really good at it. As a farmer, don't pretend you're a basis trader. Keep them separate for a little bit, get them together, make sure the bushels are there. As you know, Grandpa, or the horror stories are they sold cash grain and they didn't grow it, and that's where these stories come from. So keep 2 separate for a little bit. You got to get them combined eventually, hopefully, before you realize it's another record crop.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tommy. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Grisafi at 800-664-4383. Ag Day, brought to you by Corvus Corn Herbicide from Bayer. Get an early season win against weeds with Corvus for end of season rewards.
Welcome back. Well, Mike, we both mentioned it in crop comments earlier. Harvest is still going on in portions of the country. This map does not look like it's helping that.
No, anybody that hasn't finished it, southern Mississippi Valley into the southeast, you have more rain coming, unfortunately. Now, in a situation like this, sometimes, though, it can blow through quickly in strong or even severe thunderstorms, but you might not get as much rain as you would over an all-day rain type situation. So hopefully that's kind of the case. You don't want severe weather, though, either. Widespread rains across the northern Mississippi Valley, western Great Lakes, seeing some snow as we start today. That goes all the way back into western Kansas, kind of behind this system. Another weaker system kind of diving into the southwestern portions of the country in the west right now. Now, going into later today, you can see that line of thunderstorms from near Cincinnati all the way to just west of New Orleans by late this afternoon into early parts of the evening. Tennessee Valley southward could be some severe weather out of this, believe it or not. Once in a while this time of year we will get that. Now you see the snow from the Dakotas all the way into the northern Great Lakes. The next front is an Arctic front, first one in a while. Now this is a fairly cold front, the first one as well, because the west has been cold, but this is pure Arctic air coming in behind that secondary front. It's going to kind of weaken as it comes too far south, but you can see as we head through the day tomorrow, that is going to spread into Iowa and into southern Michigan by the end of the day, and there'll be a little bit of snow behind it as well. The first cold front, showers and thunderstorms up and down the eastern seaboard. Now the thunderstorms aren't going into the northeast more than likely, but from the mid-Atlantic southward. And taking a look at precipitation estimate, lots of it over the past 24 hours through the Plains states. Adding in the next 36, you can see the heaviest amounts by far in Mississippi, Alabama, into western Georgia, with lighter amounts into the Ohio Valley, central and eastern portions of the Great Lakes. It's all snow from the northern plains back into the Rockies, and adding in the next 36 hours will continue to add some kind of in those same areas, but the bubble of milder temperatures keeping anything from happening frozen-wise farther toward the southeast. Temperatures this afternoon, very cold air, northern plains, northern Rockies, but still mild from Chicago southward, even some 70s along the Gulf Coast. Lows tonight going to drop back into the 20s as far south as the panhandle of Texas, still 50s in the Ohio Valley in the southeast, and that cold air will continue to press with single digits in North Dakota in the afternoon hours tomorrow. There's the jet stream, and you can see as we head through time, we have another shot of cold air coming once again early next week into the northern plains and the northeast, and that will continue, I believe, with a trough in the east. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Billings, Montana. First of all, mostly cloudy and cold, high around 23 degrees. El Dorado, Arkansas, showers and storms, maybe even severe, high of 68. And Elmira, New York, a mixture of sunshine and clouds, high around 42.
Coming up, why Disney may be buying up a ranch. And the world's largest fast food chain is out with a new burger, minus the meat. Drovers reports Disney is buying a ranch in Florida. It's near a Disney resort community. Reports are Walt Disney World Company bought the BK Ranch near the master planned community of Celebration. It's located about 10 miles south of Walt Disney World. It's zoned for development, but a nearby real estate expert says he does not believe Disney will develop it. He believes the land would instead be used for conservation and to aid in water management for the park. Well, McDonald's is introducing a new burger, only this one doesn't have any meat. It's called the McVegan. Well, Drovers says it's made out of potatoes, peas, and seasoning reminiscent of samosas. It's topped with red onions, tomatoes, and an eggless tomato mayo. It was previously only available in Sweden and Finland. It's now being introduced to the Chicago headquarters international menu. Now, the news of the McVegan also comes after McDonald's announced a policy to reduce the overall use of antibiotics. That applies across 85% of the company's global beef supply chain. Well, wouldn't it be a great start to the new year debt-free? One organization is completely forgiving the medical debt of several people. The impact it's having next in the country.
In the country, brought to you by Kubota. Learn more about Kubota SSV Series skid steers at Kubota.com or demo one at your local Kubota dealer today.
Well, many people will be starting the new year without any medical debts. That's because they've had their debt wiped off the books. Vanessa Alvarez shows us what a couple of debt collectors are doing.
Reagan Adair and her family can breathe a little easier this holiday season. The Texas teacher started 2018 with over $3,000 in medical debt after years of migraines landed her in the hospital several times.
Then you have the doctor. Then you have the labs when you get blood work done.
Everything changed last April, and it's all thanks to a golden ticket of sorts and Good Samaritans from the charity group RIP Medical Debt.
It is the best gift in the world. When I opened this envelope on Easter Sunday, I thought, this is the sign God has sent this, and I am eternally grateful.
Medical debt burdens hundreds of thousands of Americans like Adair every year. The charity's founders, Jerry Ashton and Craig Antico, spent decades in the debt collection business, but then decided to put people over profits.
So what we do is we identify the people that are either in hardship or poor, and we only buy those accounts. We don't buy the accounts that can pay.
The charity buys portfolios of past due bills for pennies on the dollar. Instead of collecting the debt, they send out letters letting recipients know their bill is paid.
The debt has been canceled and abolished by using a donation.
They say debt collectors want their money, and hounding people who can't foot the bill is a no-win scenario. For Adair, a Christmas miracle she prayed for. Less stress, nicer gifts under her tree, and maybe a summer vacation.
Wow, talk about the season of giving. RIP Medical Debt estimates it has helped wipe out more than $486 million in debt. All right, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great day in Farm Country.